Hey out there in YouTube land, I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and please hit like. And what do we have here today? I've got the Zenith 133.8 bumper movement. It's a very beautiful gold vintage watch. It is gold and it is a difficult watch to repair. It's not a simple watch like a Seiko or those types. It's got this crazy bumper movement, and you've got to be so careful when you're doing a repair of this particular watch. But managed to get it all together. It's working now. Seems to be working in good order. We'll see what kind of accuracy this thing gets, but it's working. So, and the other thing is, on this watch, I was able to source a brand new crystal for the watch. It is an acrylic crystal, and I did a video previously on actually installing this particular crystal for the watch. So the installation went really well. The watch is running right now, and I'm very impressed. So the owner will be quite happy, because the owner wants to provide this watch to one of their children, and I guess it was the owner's father or grandfather's watch. So we'll get this back, and they'll be able to give this as a gift to their kid. So here it is. So I've got the movement out on the Bergeron 5395 gel-filled pad. I use that just for safety on these very expensive vintage watches. Again, if you're going to do hobby watchmaking of any type, you have got to get quality equipment. Here I'm just winding the watch up because it is winding. It has a rotor. It's not hacking. It is winding though. And it's got that crazy rotor that you're looking at there. It's kind of on the right hand side, looks like a half moon, and it's got springs on either side, and it bumps back and forth to wind the watch. So I completely disassembled this watch, put it through my Pearl watch cleaner, cleaned it completely, cleaned the balance and hairspring on it, and assembled it back together. So it's working in good order. I don't think anyone will be wearing this in the future. I think this is going to be one of the ones that's going to be in a drawer, and every now and then they're going to wind it up and say, look, Grandpa's watch still working. So it's hard to say though. It's not a modern looking watch for sure, but it is a very nice looking watch. So in this video, I'm just putting this thing together. It's not as easy to assemble as I thought it would be. I thought bam bam and it's together again, but it's got some unique components to it, and we'll have a look at those. So here's the movement here, and I did notice when the watch was running, it was running exceptionally well face up, but when it was face down, it was slowing down. So I thought, okay, maybe there's an issue here with that lower jewel and maybe the cap jewel. So I decided to open up the case for that cap jewel, the jewel and cap jewel, clean it up again, throw it in alcohol, clean it up, and re-oil it. So here you're just watching me do that re-oiling and taking that cap jewel out. So the trickiest part on working with these jewels is not losing them. So in this case here, I used Rodico to loosen the jewel, but I took the setting out with my tweezers. Very tricky work, and it's the setting with a jewel embedded in it. And here I'm just using the Rodico to clean up any residual oil that might be in the top where that jewel pivot is coming through. And now I've got to take this thing and get some work done on it. So I would not say this is the easiest job I've ever done, because when you're taking these jewels out and trying to put a dot of oil on the top, it's so difficult. And as you'll see a little later on, had a real challenge trying to get this jewel back in. And what I was trying to do is put the cap back on and rotate it. On pocket watches, you're able to do that, but on a small watch like this, it's almost impossible to actually take the cap jewel, oil it, and put it back on. So I thought, okay, I'm going to clean that up again, re-oil it again. I ended up using the pad to scrape off the old oil. I think that worked fine. I checked it. Then I realized, hey, why not just take the jewel setting here and then put it upside down onto the cap, and then it'll stick on perfectly. And look at that. It worked. I'm not sure if I've read that anywhere else, but I just thinking out of the box to try to get that done, and I put that back in and put the cage back on it, and that was then oiled to perfection. So here I'm putting the dial back on the watch. There's only two dial feet on this watch, and there's screws on the either side that hold the dial feet in place. I'm trying not to get anything on it, but I'm loosening up the screws a bit to get the watch to sit down inside. And the other one seemed to be loose enough, and then there's a little gap in there where you put your screwdriver and you tighten up the screws that hold the dial feet in place. It's not that bad a job, actually. You just have to do it being mindful of the rotor and the balance as it's rotating. This watch has a strange ring that you've got to put on, and I managed to figure out how to put that ring on. It's got only one screw holding it, but it's got a little tab that's indented that goes into the movement. So here I'm just farting with that ring to get it back on. Now once I had that ring on, I noted there was just a little tiny speck of dust in there with the center wheel pivot, and I had to work that thing out because I didn't know why it was there, but it was there. So because the watch had been completely clean, I just have to world's smallest. There's a speck of dust. I think Horton hears a who's inside that dust. Now I had to take this little screw here, and that screw goes in here to keep that ring on. And again, on the opposite side, there's a tab that lines up with the movement, and the movement sticks into that ring, and then you simply put the screw in, and then it's in place without an issue. So, but you do have to know how to do that. I decided to use my Myers number 58 movement holder. Once I had that ring in place, I wasn't going to be squishing the actual face of the watch at all. So, and this was to enable me to have a stable platform to install the hands. And here you're looking at the back of the movement still running, and I've got the hands and the case back all ready to be installed. And there are my pushers. Now installing the hands here, I decided to put them in my bench block just to see if I could rub off any dust or whatever with my Rodico. And I'm holding that with my little stick that I got, my Bergeron stick, just to make sure the hands are nice and clean. And I do that with both the minute hand and the hour hand. And I do not do that with the second hand. It's very thin, and I don't want to bend the hand. The minute hand is also bent at the very end like it would be in a pocket watch, so it could actually, as it goes past the length of the hour hand, the minute hand then curves downward so it doesn't interfere with the actual case. So here I just push the hand in. I'm checking the distances to make sure that I'm getting it as close as possible without touching. There's a symbol on the top of that Zenith watch. I made sure it cleared that symbol, and there's no issue. Then I'm able to set that to 12 o'clock. And once I've set it to 12 o'clock and there's the spacing is really good, then I can take the minute hand and put that on top and make sure there's a clearance between that and the hour hand. And also make sure that's set for 12 o'clock high, just like a Clint Eastwood movie. So once I had that set, I pressed it in and made sure that it was pressed in adequately, and then checked it for movement, and it moved nicely. And then I took the second hands, and the second hand just goes right over the pivot. So there's a tiny pipe that goes over the pivot in the second hand. A little trickier to get in. And when you're doing that, you're better off just dropping it on the mat a few times until it actually is in the right position rather than trying to turn it around, because there's a chance you'll bend it. So I use that stick again. So once I got the pipe over the pivot, I was able to push it down just a bit, and then I use a flat pusher. And you don't need to push it down too hard. If you do, you could damage the pivot, so you just have to push it slightly. I do have hand setting machines that I use, but it wasn't necessary for this watch. Probably easier to do the way I did it, and the space was excellent, and I didn't have to worry about, like on a pocket watch, a sweep second on the bottom or anything. So it worked really well. The hands were in. Pretty proud of my work, and there's that beautiful cover that I have for it, and the brand new acrylic crystal for this watch. So there it is there. And now I've got to take the stem out again in order to put the watch movement back into the watch. So there's a small button you press, and then you pull the stem straight out. It's a bit tricky putting it back in, I have to admit. Probably not showing all the struggles but it was very tricky to put that back in. And actually, to case it properly, I tried to case it this way, and it's just not the right way to case it. And once I tried casing it and realized, what are you doing, you moron? I said, okay, let's use our brain here and do this properly. I can't drop that down with the hands where it is. I don't know why I forgot, but I don't do a lot of watches. I do mainly pocket watches. So I realized, okay, not a good plan. Now the value of having this gelled case is that once I was able to put the movement inside or the case over, I could press down really hard on it, and that would keep the see me pressing very hard on it, and that kept the movement in place so it wouldn't rattle down or fall down from where it was. So that worked really well. Got it down there for the next adventure. Of course, nothing is simple with this watch at all. So once I had got it in place, there is a ring, and it's kind of a full circle, but it goes up and down as it progresses through the radius of the ring. And there's a small tab on the side. The ring kind of stops and it hooks down, and that little hook goes into an indent. And then you have to keep that in the indent while you kind of use your tweezers to push the ring around in the slot, because of course the ring is not the same size when it starts, but it has to be that size when it's finished. It has to fit in that slot perfectly. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I put that ring in there? This is the challenge of watchmaking, by the way. So this is what makes it interesting, I guess, because every time you do a piece of work, you've got a problem to solve. I'm sure the Zenith factory trained their staff on how to do this properly, but I figured be very careful, make sure that you're deliberate with everything you do and work slowly, and then move this thing around in place, and then you have the ring in place and there's no issue. And see, I'm pressing it in here to make sure that it's absolutely in place. And now I'm going to put the stem back in. And like I said, putting the stem in was a bit of a challenge. It wasn't easy. So I managed to do it. But all you need to do is press that button and then push the stem in. But had to do a little bit of magic to get that thing in. And now I'm just winding the watch to see if it's going to take a good wind, and it did. No problem there. So completely serviced. It's running fairly well. I wouldn't say it's one of the best runners I've ever worked on, but it's not too bad. So here I'm looking at the old gasket, and I want to replace that, and it's replaceable, but needed to go gasket hunting to do that. So the first thing I needed to do was measure the gasket diameter, and go into my gaskets and go find a darn gasket that might fit that diameter. Also, the width of the gaskets were important, because you don't want it too wide that it sloppies over the edge and it doesn't fit the case back in. So that was too wide a gasket there, but I did manage to find another gasket that was a lot better and fit a lot better. So I went gasket hunting for gasket number 2, and I do have quite a few gaskets, so not a big problem there at all. All right, here we're just putting the case back on, and I just have a simple device to use the indents there to rotate the case on. So what I did here was I turned it backwards a bit first until I knew the threads were in contact, the inner and outer threads, and then I was able to just screw that case back on, sizing it properly. So I didn't screw it on super tight, as this thing will not be in the water. And you don't want the next service guy, if there is a next service guy, to have to work hard to take off the case. This will just be a collector's item for somebody, and not used for probably daily use or sport, for sure. So here the watch has been cleaned and serviced, and the old crystal was replaced by a brand new acrylic crystal, and the hands were also cleaned. I didn't clean the face other than using Rodico to clean it, and the clasp is awkward but interesting, so I figured out how to put this clasp back on. This is a 24 karat gold Zenith watch. It's probably from 1950 or 1960, somewhere in that time frame, but anyway, the watch work was complete. Very satisfying once you get one of these things running. Very difficult to do that but the owner will be satisfied, hopefully, with the watch that they get back. So thanks for subscribing and liking my channel, and I'll see you next time.